we're going to go ahead and kick it off. I am really excited to welcome everybody to our first Friday Focus of 2021, and we have some special fun prepared for all of you. So, as you know, we are continuing in kind of our distance mindset as we kick off 2021. So, we are keeping y'all connected at an appropriate distance. And so I'll share a little bit more about what's coming up when we get to the end of today's visit, but just know that we have several statewide Zooms scheduled for this year. Not only are we engaging our great folks here in Tennessee, but also across the country, which you'll get to see today. Without further ado, let's get to the meat of the program. We have two special sites for you here today. We are coming to you live from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Now, the grapes may not exactly look like this at this point in the year, but there's going to be some good work going on there today. You're going to hear from Rachel and Anna and some of the volunteers there a little bit about some of their on-site demonstration gardens, and that's going to be our second stop. Our first stop for today is Orange County, Florida. So we're not exactly going to be doing this, but maybe a little bit more like this. And so we are really excited to introduce some aspects of some of the sustainable landscape type education that our friends at University of Florida do. So they have demonstration gardens, native plants, very many of the same things that we are pretty psyched about here in Tennessee. And the special connection that we have with Florida is actually through one of our agents. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Evangeline, who I hope you all have kind of already met. She is our Extension Agriculture Agent and Master Gardener Coordinator in Bradley County, Tennessee, a little bit further south from here in Cleveland. And so Evangeline is going to pick it up from here and introduce you to our special Florida guest.
Yes, thank you so much, Natalie. Me and Tia both are super excited to be a part of this, and it's always nice to take a look back at home and see what's been going on there. But anyways, as Natalie had mentioned, I'm Evangeline James. I'm the Bradley County Master Gardener Coordinator and Ag and Natural Resource Agent. I got my degree from the University of Florida in Ag Education and Communication. I was able to do some really fun hands-on extension internships back home, whether it be through Cafe Latina, which was helping to create ag resources for people who speak Spanish, or just through working with hands-on with Master Gardener coordinators and agents. I had such a fun time. I decided I got to do this full time. So luckily enough, I was able to land a job here in beautiful Bradley County, and that leads me to where I'm at now. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my good friend Tia Silvesi. She is a Orange County agent, and I have a little bio I typed up here because Tia has done so much stuff and she has such a thorough background. I wanted to make sure that I got all of it. So Tia received her undergraduate degree at the University of Central Florida, where she was able to study wildflowers. She then went on to get her master's degree in tropical plants and soil science from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. So while she was there in Hawaii, she conducted research on local organic fertilizer and its effects on fruits and vegetables. And then from there, she came back to Florida and she got a position as a biological scientist in a horticulture lab at the University of Florida Gulf Coast Research and Education Center. And that's actually how me and Tia know each other. She was my boss there, and she was a pretty awesome boss. Just got to throw that out there. And now she's the Florida Friendly Landscaping Extension Agent in Orange County, where she provides educational programming to help homeowners implement water conservation practices and strategies to recycle household and yard waste and work towards more sustainable landscapes. So that's Tia Silvesi.
All right. Hey, everybody. Hello from sunny Florida. Today we're having some beautiful weather here. It's about 50 or 60 degrees. 64 is the high for today, and 45 is the low for today. Now, our extension center is by the airport, so we have a couple planes going by from time to time, and I'll just try to be quiet for a minute because I can barely hear myself talk. Anyway, We're here in the Orange County Exploration Garden. So we have a 4-acre demonstration garden, and we feature 12 different theme gardens. We have vegetables, we have succulents, we have fruit trees, we have a pollinator garden, we have a formal garden and a shade garden, and probably a couple more that I forgot. But my job is I'm a Florida friendly landscaping agent. And I know you have a similar program up in Tennessee, but we're really, the Florida friendly is all about protecting our water. If you've been to Florida and visited here, you might have visited the springs, our beautiful springs that, just flow crystal clear water, 72 degrees year round. And we want to keep those pristine and clean. We don't want the fertilizer runoff, to make the springs green. We also have tons of rivers and lakes. And of course, we're a peninsula and surrounded by water the whole way. Another plane.
All good, Tia. Yeah, no, those springs are super nice. And then if we're not careful, then you get those sinkhole issues.
So I'm going to start the tour in our demonstration garden right here. So we're the University of Florida, and our garden is called the Exploration Gardens, and you can look on our website for the Exploration Gardens. And this is just our vegetable garden here. So let me try to turn the camera around so I can better show you what I'm looking at. Here we're going into the entrance of it. And we have demonstrating different methods of growing here. So this first bed is made out of wood as a garden bed. And behind that, you can see the blue rain barrels that are cut in half. So those containers are, just plastic. And we're growing some mint in there. And then further back is our garden that's made out of recycled timber. So it's kind of like a plasticky type of product. And the last garden bed is made out of concrete block. So even though it's winter here, we can still grow all kinds of stuff. It's actually our peak growing season. The garden here goes really from September, where we do a lot of our planting of these nice cool weather crops. And then we grow all through the winter until March, April, May. And come the rainy season in the summer, it's so hot, so rainy that many of these vegetables cannot grow. And the only things that can grow are things like okra and sweet potatoes and black-eyed peas. So we have a nice bed of lettuce here, little butter crunch lettuce. And we like to show people the square foot gardening method. And we have some kale growing. We also have some sweet peas right here. Those are some of my favorite. They're making these little peas here. Delicious. Our onions are doing really well. And we have some more peas growing up the trellis. We use this drip irrigation line because we want to conserve water. Drip is a great way, as you all know, to conserve water. So you're not just watering everywhere. We don't need to water in the pathway. We just need to water right by the base of the plant. Our collard greens also are looking very amazing and delicious here. Plenty of food for all of our volunteers and staff to eat. So we have master gardeners who work in the garden every day of the week pretty much, and they have their different sections that they maintain, and so they're here on a regular basis. They know what's going on. We also have these hydroponic kind of grow towers, which I'm personally not too crazy about them because all the water just runs down on the ground and we have to, redo this plastic every couple of years. But it's a great system if you're living in an urban area and you may have a concrete floor where you just can't grow in the ground. But to me, it's not as sustainable as growing in the ground like these vegetable gardens. So Florida friendly landscaping, we have 9 different principles and they all work together to help reduce pollution and keep our water clean and also conserve water. I get to talk about all kinds of things for my job. So not only vegetables, but flowers. This is a real pretty patch of wildflowers here. And I love to get down in the flowers. If you join onto my Facebook channel, or I do some YouTube videos, and I post it up on our University of Florida websites. And people love to see what's growing in the garden. So I have these wildflowers here, and I'm actually doing a little research experiment to find out consumer preferences of wildflowers. We want people to plant native wildflowers, but sometimes they don't grow as fast as the non-native ones. So I'm working on a project now that we're combining native wildflowers and the non-native ones. And I'm finding if you plant them both together at the same time, then you'll have a longer bloom period. So planting here in October 1st, and then we have some flowers that bloom within 30 days. I'll show you some of those. And then we have some of the native ones, they don't bloom for, 3 or 4 months, like starting in January. This is one of our most successful plots here because we have some of this beautiful cosmos that's blooming, the pink, but then we also have some of the native, the tick seed, the Coreopsis lanceolata or leavenworthii, and combining them together, we have this nice, green carpet with flowers popping up. So that's what I'm trying to show. Whereas some other plots that I only have the native stuff, like these ones, they are not making any flowers yet. So I think people would prefer to plant where they can get some flowers here. So hold on, another plane going by. All right, the plane's gone now. We also like to plant a lot for bees and butterflies. Right here is our African blue basil, and this thing just has bees all over it all the time. And this, it didn't even get nipped back. We had a little freeze that went below 32 degrees. It didn't even get nipped back. So a great plant, and we're just encouraging people to plant, everything, vegetables, fruits, herbs, flowers, things for the butterflies, the birds, the hummingbirds, a lot of biodiversity. So now we're entering into our next garden through this little archway here. This is our pollinator garden. So I really get to talk about a lot through my job. We have a little gazebo here that you can just hang out and chill out and take it all in. I'll let you see what's going on. We have that cassia blooming here in the back with the yellow flowers. And then we also have some purple salvia back here and a bottle brush tree, the biggest tree in the garden here. And then we do a lot of natives too. We're always advocating people to plant native because they have special relationships with some of the insect and other biodiversity as they evolve together. And this big one here is the wild lime. I'll show you the sign for it real quick. So we try to plant a little bit of everything, and this demonstration garden is open to the public, and so people can just come and park and tour here for free during daylight hours. We don't have any gates or fences, for better or worse. For the most part, we don't have too much theft or vandalism, but somebody has been coming and stealing all of our strawberries lately.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that's no fun. Looking back up that way, that's where our extension center is. So we're behind the extension center right now. I just got these signs installed right here. So these show the 9 Florida-friendly principles. The principle here is attract wildlife. And so again, telling, people to plant for the bees and the butterflies and the birds. Berry plants like hollies do really good here. We also have elderberries. And we have a lot of master gardeners help out here in this garden too, with the pollinator garden, replanting. we're constantly just kind of changing things up, and we have a lot of long-term native plants, like this goldenrod here that they just kind of are perennials and come back year to year, but we might have to do a little trim for them. So let me show you our little pollinator house here. This is pretty cool. It's big, it's taller than me. So our garden is in Orlando, Florida. If you ever fly into the Orlando airport, we are literally like 3 miles north of it. Just Google Orange County Extension Center, University of Florida. And so the mason bees and other critters, make their homes in this pollinator house here.
Did you all make that pollinator house, Tia, or did you order that in?
It was before my time, so I don't know. I've worked here for about 1.5 years, and I've been with the University of Florida for about 3 years.
It looks nice.
So kind of wrapping up here, we have some hibiscuses here in Florida. This one is the Turk's cap hibiscus. You can see the red flowers. They don't open up any more than that. That's kind of full bloom right there. We also have the permeable pathway, these rocks with the sand underneath, so that it helps with water infiltration. We get so much rain in Florida, about 52 inches per year, and we want it to soak back into the groundwater and recharge our aquifer rather than like running off, getting channeled down into the river and out to the ocean, because once it hits that salt water, you can't make it fresh again. A little butterfly for you guys. Hope you saw that. So anyway, that kind of wraps up, this part of the garden. And I'll just do another little panoramic to show you guys, what else is the Extension Center. I'm back to the main pathway. And so I'll just show you this. That's our Extension Center right up there. And then this concrete is also another type of permeable pathway. And so the water just seeps down through it. Over here is our tree walk. So we have like an eastern red cedar here to the left, and a Nagy podocarpus, that tall one. We have the ligustrum, which we kind of trim like a baby tree. In the back, there are magnolia trees, and we have some oaks and some crepe myrtles, and a couple fruit trees in the back, some figs and mulberries, and a little bit of citrus, although you probably know citrus is having a real hard time in Florida right now due to all the disease. And then lastly, our little picnic shelter right there. So we can have outdoor classes and teach people about gardening. It works really well with COVID because we can have the, outdoor and some social distancing. And yes, what this stuff is here is permeable cement. So the rain actually seeps through it. And it's a kind of new technology. It's been around for maybe 10 years. So check that out in your area. We have just a couple contractors do that here. So anyway, I'll take any questions now.
Thanks, Tia. That was really nice. You guys have an awesome facility.
So when we walked through the little archway, there was a hedge there, and folks were wondering what the hedge species was.
Yeah, that is a type of viburnum, like a Walter's viburnum. It's native and it flowers in the spring with very beautiful white flowers that the bees love.
All right, cool. And we had a question about the rain barrels. Do they have the bottoms cut out, or are there holes that are drilled in the bottom, or how do you manage that?
Yeah, there are holes drilled in the bottom, so there's drainage.
All right. And we had a question here that was a little bit about how old the demonstration garden is. I mean, I can speak for myself. We're pretty impressed to see 4 acres of demonstration garden and extension office. How long have, the team there been working to build it?
Our gardens were established in 2009, so they're a little over 10 years old, 11 going on 12 years old. And we've kind of put it together piece by piece, but some of the trees, that were initially planted are pretty good size now, 20 or 30 feet.
And I'll go ahead and ask the fourth question. And sorry, Evangeline, jump in here whenever. And actually, Maureen was kind of reading my mind. She just asked, what type of residential and consumer training programs and educational opportunities do you use the garden for?
Yeah, we use the garden for training. We have self-guided tours. We have guided tours. Next week, I'm going to be having a training for master gardener volunteers to learn from me how to give a guided tour. And then we'll be scheduling weekly tours throughout the spring, starting like February 14th until it kind of gets too hot, like around May 15th. And then we post pictures daily also on our Facebook and our Instagram pages for people who can't physically be here. They can learn about our gardens, through our social media sites. And then we do have classes out here. I showed you the pavilion where people can learn hands-on, but due to COVID, that's been slowed down a little bit lately. And I will be having a field day later this month to show the wildflower plots and collect some consumer preferences, kind of survey data to see if I can get people to grow these at home. When we have events like that, we often give out like a free plant or a couple of free packs of seeds or something to help them get their garden started at home.
Nice. Also, I think we may not have gone over this one. Someone was wondering if the cinder blocks are dry stacked in the garden.
Yes, they are dry stacked.
Okay. Awesome. And do you have a training program via Zoom that out-of-state master gardeners could access?
Yeah, I offer webinars, usually 1 or 2 per month. I just had one yesterday on the right plant, right place, and I'll be posting the recording on YouTube. And then next month, I'll be doing composting and mulch. We also will be doing a butterfly gardening. And then we have a Florida-friendly landscaping class that goes over all 9 of the principles.
Nice. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be checking that out, which might even include myself.
Yeah, and a lot of them are free and open to the public, so anybody can join from anywhere.
Nice.
And those 9 principles will look pretty familiar to several of our folks because our Tennessee Smart Yards program was actually modeled after the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program. So those 9 principles are pretty familiar to a lot of our folks. I know this in some ways may be asking you to talk about like your favorite child or something, but what are some of your favorite Florida natives to grow? I just thought that might be fun for some of our folks who are pretty interested in, Tennessee natives.
Yeah, well, we kind of have this list. We're coming up with some bulletproof Florida natives, and especially the ones that are good for wildlife. So we have the firebush, which is kind of like a hedgy shrub that grows to about 10 or 15 feet tall, and the butterflies love it, the hummingbirds love it, and it's really drought tolerant. It can take our rain as well. I love the palms too. The cabbage palm is our state tree of Florida, and the saw palms, even though they're a little spiny, they have these beautiful inflorescences, that blooms that are just like a magnet for bees, and they produce the little berries too for the wildlife. Other than that, the coral honeysuckle vine is my favorite for hummingbirds, and that one is, I see hummingbirds daily on our vine here because they just love that one. Coral honeysuckle, it's the Florida native. It has like little pink flowers. I also like aquatic plants a lot. In all our lakes here, we have pickerel weed, we have duck potato and water lilies. And I teach a class on lakefront landscaping, and where I give people a pickerel weed plant to take home and plant in their lakefront and teach them how to plant aquatic plants. So that's a really cool class, and that's a great plant because it's just always flowers, the purple pickerel weed, and the butterflies like that one too.
So we have another question. Someone is wondering if you have a greenhouse on the property.
Yeah, we do have a greenhouse. Let me see if I can flip my camera around. So if you look right across the field there, there's our greenhouse, and we have about 4 benches that are about 20 feet long and a small little hydroponic system in there. So right now we are starting our tomato seeds for the spring season. We start them in January for planting in the garden like February 15th. So that's our greenhouse right there. Oh, that's great. Yeah, some plants just grow all up and down the East Coast. Another native we have here is the elderberry, and that grows in the kind of wetland or wetter areas. And I think you guys have that one too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll have folks who grow like native, straight species of elderberry, but we also have a lot of cultivars. So yeah, crawl across the spectrum.
Great.
Yeah.
Also, we have a few more questions that just popped up. One of them is, which plants love high heat?
Oh, high heat? Well, the Florida friendly plants, they have to be able to tolerate our climate zone, which here we're in the USDA hardiness zone 9B. And so a lot of the palms, the magnolias, the oaks, the pines, and a lot of the some of the flowers, can also tolerate the high heat. We do have irises. We have the was it Iris virginiana here, and also the hexagonia here. So a lot of the native plants are good ones to grow. We also do a trial in the summertime with the FNGLA, which is the Florida Association of Landscape Nurseries. And they ask the breeders, to develop the latest and greatest varieties. And then we come and we plant them here in our garden and see what survives the summer heat. Some things just zap out right away or get fungal infection. But last year we had some lantanas that did really well. Those sun patients, type of impatient, they did really well in the summer heat. Also the pentas and the verbena, like a verbena bonensis, and the moss rose, like the portulaca, they did really well in the summer. And then the native wildflowers too, we'll keep ours going through the summer, like the gaillardia and the coreopsis. I couldn't tolerate this summer heat. So those are some good choices for us.
And let me see here. I think I know even the answer to this one. Although you're inland, do you have to deal with sandy soil? What soil amendments do you prefer?
Oh yeah, our soil is very sandy here, and my favorite amendment is just compost and mulch, which kind of breaks down into compost. So before we plant basically anything, we're adding compost, and mixing it in with the soil, constantly amending it, like 4 times per year, especially in the vegetable garden.
Yep. You know where I grew up, Tia, Plant City. That's not too far off from Orlando. And I remember as a kid, my backyard was full of sand, and my front yard was full of sand. And I watched my dad for years struggle to get something green going on over there. So amendments are definitely important. And then we have another question here. Does the native lime tree suffer from the current disease issues with citrus?
Actually, it does not. It looks really healthy. It's growing very good. And they're looking at using some of those, root stocks to graft onto some of the good tasting ones. But the native lime doesn't really get much for a tasty fruit.
Someone's curious, what is that pink over your left shoulder? What plant is that back there?
Oh, that's one of the sun patients.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that does well here. And that's actually from last year. And then there's a real pretty, what do you call that one? Geranium. This pink one. And here's the normal impatiens. And this is a pretty deep shady area. We have a little bird of paradise.
Oh my gosh.
And this is the sun patient, which just blooms like year-round, beautiful color there.
Do you guys have like a little drip irrigation going through all those pots, like in and out, or is that just?
No, these pots we have to water by hand.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I couldn't tell from.
Yeah,
the video.
but that would be good to put a little micro irrigation in there.
Yeah, get some little like mini head sprinklers down there or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we just put up for anyone who is interested in the chat box and learning more about Tia's presentations and staying in touch with them, we have her Facebook link in the chat box. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to follow up and just like your page and see what you're up to.
Yeah, I just did another video about planting tomato seeds. I'll be sharing that one close.
Okay, yeah, I'll be looking forward to that. And
That's
also,
a subject that's close to all of our hearts.
yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for having me on today. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Tia.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. That was fabulous. We'll return the favor anytime we can be of help, Tia. Thanks so much.
Sounds good. Have a great day.
Bye, Tia.
Hello. Let me know if you can hear me or if you need us to change that at all. But we
Hey,
are here in Murfreesboro and we are in our vineyard. So here with me today, we just wanted to show off, first of all, our Tennessee fashion statement for pruning. You must wear your Davy Crockett hat. So here's Susie. I'm not even sure what animal this is, but it's a fox. So we just wanted to let you know that you must look the part. So Susie's going to get back to pruning, but we're going to also introduce here Dr. Johnston, Tony Johnston with MTSU, and we partner with them for this vineyard and with the harvest and everything like that. They study these grapes. They publish research papers on these grapes. And we also have one of our master gardeners, Dr. Warren Anderson, and he has on his MTSU sweatshirt, but he has covered it up because he no longer works there. So he is a retired professor at MTSU as well. So I'm going to kind of interview them today to talk about these grapes. So first of all, Warren, let's say a little bit about the history of this vineyard and how big it is.
It's an acre in size right there. Dr. Johnson and I planted it. Dr. Johnson and I planted it in 03.
I think that's right.
Is what it is. It's 40 vines to a row, and there's 5 rows. It'll go about more than a ton of grapes per year. And that started about the 10th year. Right there. What do you have to say?
No, I'm going to have you talk more about the planning and tell them about the spacing.
Spacing.
10 by 10.
It's 10 by 10.
That would be feet.
It's not inches, it's feet. Is what it is.
So that's kind of the history a little bit. He said it was an acre in size. So that's pretty big for master gardeners to manage. We do come out here in August and we have a big harvest day. Typically we invite the entire community. Everyone comes out and they pick a lug to get a jug of juice to take home, and they do whatever they want to with that juice once they take it off of our property. And so we're going to talk with Dr. Johnston now about how to prune, what you're looking for, and he's going to show us that. Let's move right over here.
Sure. So what we have in our vineyard are some fully mature Cynthiana or Norton grapevines. They grow well in our area. They're grown throughout the Midwest of the United States, as well as some bits of the South. Every year you have to prune every year to make sure you have a good harvest. And we're out today, not only training but pruning and getting ready for next year. What I like to explain to everyone about pruning is what you cut this right now affects the harvest in the fall. The fruit grows on the buds, off the buds on these plants, and you can see each of these shoots has quite a number of buds. What we're trying to do is manage the total number of buds that are left on the vine so that we don't allow the plant to try to overproduce grapes so that we end up with fully ripened fruit. So we have learned over the years approximately how many total buds we need on an individual vine. We want to eliminate all of the dead wood that is left on this vine right now so that when this fall, we don't have dead wood, and I can show you some examples of dead wood, and we're looking at one right now. The dead wood is not going to produce. In fact, when the fruit gets put on the vines this fall, that dead wood will be in the way. The grapes will try to grow around the dead wood. We just don't want it. So we're removing all of the dead wood. That's an easy step. Second point is all these long shoots like this, they're loaded with buds. We want to not only eliminate the number of buds, we want to prune this back so that it looks nice and clean and neat. These shoots here in Tennessee, we've had shoots. In fact, I've cut some this morning that were somewhere between 30 and 40 feet long. We don't need that much growth out of these plants, so we're going to take some of that back. Next general point is we want the fruit to be set up on this top wire. So any shoot that grows below this wire, we're going to automatically remove. So for example, I'm looking right here at this shoot that grew out this year from this point on the plant, and I'm going to eliminate it. And then I'm going to eliminate all these other shoots down below. And the most important caveat, I am doing what I tell all of my friends not to do. Don't just prune it and leave the prunings on the ground. We do have tarps, and you can see one in the background. We do have tarps to put the cuttings on because we want to haul all the cuttings out of the vineyard and keep them out. Those cuttings are harborages for insects and molds. We don't want them in the vineyard. In addition, the cuttings can tear up a mower or a bush hog. We just want everything out to stay clean. So I've cut the lower pieces out of this grape off this vine, and now what I'm going to start doing is literally going through and simply making what I would call a gross prune. I'm going to shorten up some of these pieces so I can see what I'm doing, because it gets to be a massive profusion of growth. Ultimately, I'm going to want to have 2 to 3 buds on each shoot, so that when I finish on this vine, there's going to be somewhere between 40 and 60 total buds on this particular plant. That'll help me maximize the potential for us to get a good harvest. It maximizes the quality of the fruit this fall, because the plant has plenty of energy to ripen all of that fruit. And again, because we have about 200 vines here, the birds all know where to go to eat. And if we manage the vineyard properly, the birds can't eat all the grapes, and we still get plenty to do what we're going to do. So I'm gonna go through and kind of clear a spot, because we can't prune the whole thing for this presentation. But as I cut, I do want to point out that the live vines look green inside when you cut them, which is one of the reasons that I recommend that people get comfortable with the idea of making an initial cut on a shoot to verify that it's alive, and then go to cut it to the length you want next. It's okay to make 2 cuts. Second, if there is a vine that may appear dead, like this one did, because it was dead on the end, you can confirm whether the whole shoot is dead or just a piece of it, maybe the end. All of that dead material needs to come out of this plant, and so I'm gonna go through and make some quick demonstration cuts, and you'll see that just by clearing out some of the volume of the material, it rapidly becomes a little bit less daunting, because I do understand that when you're faced with a tangle of material like this, it's a little bit disconcerting to start cutting things away and trying to identify what you should be and not be doing. And I'm sorry, that was an example of one of the occupational hazards of cutting grapes. They will get into your hair, they'll get in your hat, they'll get in your eyes. You do have to be careful to not get your eye poked. So once I've cleared some space here and I can see what's going on, now I'm going to go back and start looking specifically at the buds on individual shoots. And you can see on this particular shoot, take my glove off so you can see, there's a bud on the underside here, and there's another bud right there that's kind of difficult to see. And that's close to our target. We want 2 to 3 buds on a shoot, and then we'll look at the total number of shoots to make a final decision. So I'm gonna go back to some of these that I previously cut, and this shoot obviously is dead. I like to say that pruning grapes is an exercise in contortion. Trying to get your clippers to the right angle to cut these things is a whole lot of fun sometimes. Second, when you note a dead shoot, it's extremely important to cut it as close to the main trunk, if you will, or main arm, so that there's no piece sticking out left from that dead wood. Because again, when the fruit's set, if there are fruit there, they'll try to grow around that little broken stem, and it makes harvesting just it's terrible. So we're going to try to make it as clean looking so that when we come back this fall to harvest, it'll be a whole lot easier. So I'm going to continue to make a few cuts.
Can you do another close cut in the sunshine? Because that one was in the shade. I want to show that close
let me
cut.
find a good one for you. Okay, here. This shoot, for example, is dead. And I'm going to demonstrate, for example, I want this stem turns right here. It grows back up. And we want to cut this so that it cuts it as close to that angle as we can. I do want to note that this piece of this shoot may also be dead. We'll determine that in just a second. There's a third shoot on here that looks like it has some buds. We're going to find out if it's alive or not. But I'm going to hold my clippers so that I'm cutting as close to that angle of that elbow as I can. And now you see there's nothing left for a cluster of grapes or anything to grab onto. A tendril will grab onto those little bits that are, for example, here's an old cut that actually, if you want to be really technical, you might want to clip it up a little bit closer and clean it up so that no tendrils can grab it. Okay, so back to this, we've got this shoot here that I'm not sure if it's dead or alive, so I'm going to make a small cut, and it looks like it's dead back to here. I'm going to now make another cut between this bud and this bud to determine if it's alive, and it's still dead. So I'm going to assume that all of it is dead, and I'm going to again make another cleaning cut, and you can see that all of it is dead to there. There's a shoot here that, again, I'm not quite sure about. I clip it, it looks dead. So that tells me that this whole shoot is dead back to the next junction point. And I'm gonna take my clippers and I'm gonna cut that off, and you can see it's dead right there. But this shoot, I believe, is alive, and that does look green, doesn't it?
No.
Nope.
No.
Okay, it's dead too. All right, let's go back further. This shoot, I'm confident is alive. That tells me that this stem is alive back here, but not from this point forward. So I can cut this off safely. And actually, I need a little bit bigger clippers. I need some lops to cut this back, but for now, it's perfectly fine. But this gives you an idea. Now, again, now that I've got this one live shoot, I've got a bud here, and a bud on the underside right here. And I need to cut this on the outside of that last bud that I want to retain. And that is done. The last point of, shall we say, finesse that I want to talk about is when we look at the direction that these shoots grow in, you can see this shoot is grown right up against this other part of the grape, and eventually they'll grow together. And that's not necessarily a highly desirable thing to have in your vineyard, because of course, if a cluster of grapes gets set right in this hole, they'll fill up the hole with grapes. And it's going to be really hard to get those grapes out of there. So not this year necessarily, but because this shoot could die over the rest of the winter, and it may not be an issue. But I will come back and look at this in the spring, and if it does not grow out, I'm probably going to end up cutting this whole piece off from this point to eliminate that congestion in the vines. So that's a pretty quick overview of the basic principles. We want to encourage the plant to set the fruit on this wire, this wire that we're supporting the vine with, and we want to manage the fruit load, and we want to eliminate all those shoots down below so that we don't have a mess under the vineyard, under the row. And once we get through the pruning, we just sit back and wait till the spring so we can start getting ready to remove all the shoots that generally grow down on the lower portion of the trunk in the spring, regardless of how well we prune them. So once we get the pruning done, we're done until, maybe April-ish, 1st of May here in Tennessee. And then we just come through and eliminate these shoots that grow down on the bottom part. And then we sit back and wait till the fall.
Yes, until August.
Until August.
Right. So we're going to pan around really quick so you can see other things, and we'll start looking at questions. So you can see here, it is an acre. It is quite a bit of space for volunteers to manage. We do have our groundskeeper here that does mow in between our rows here. So that's really nice because it keeps it mowed throughout the summer. But this is quite a bit of space for our volunteers to manage. So you can see they started this morning and they've actually pruned way faster than normal. We've been talking about that. Normally they're congregating before COVID and talking and drinking coffee and everything. And today everyone got to work, I think because they knew we were going to be on our video. But just wanted to show you how big of a space this is. We are in Murfreesboro, right beside the interstate. So this is a very urban area, but we do have a lot of property here. So that is great. We are very thankful for that. But we generally do in August have a lot of people out here picking. Families come out, and again, they pick a lug and they take a jug of juice home from our vineyard. So that's a great way for us to get involved with our community, bring them on the property. Normally we start this early because we have about 3 weekends that we do this because we are normally inviting the public out to show them how to prune. So maybe you wouldn't be starting this early on if you were, just had a couple vines in your backyard, but with a property this large and we're trying to use this as a demonstration for the public, we normally, again, would do this for about 3 weekends, starting the last weekend in January, going into February, so that people know how to prune their grapevines correctly at home, and then they would go home and do that. So that is why we start so early. You might not need to start this early, depending on where you are in the state or how many vines you have. It might not take you that long. Greg says focus on American or French American hybrids in Tennessee.
So here in Tennessee, we do have a number of growers who produce French American hybrid grapes. They are better adapted to our environment here. The Vitis vinifera, the classic European grapes, especially here in the middle and West Tennessee regions, it's just too warm. It never cools off enough for them. The French American hybrids are definitely more adapted to our environment. Cynthiana and Norton are an American variety that was actually developed in about 1820, 1830, really became popular by 1850. It is highly adapted to our environment, and I do recommend people grow it, especially in this region.
What about
muscadine? Thank you. Great question from the peanut gallery. The muscadines. This is roughly the northern range of muscadine grapes. Muscadines are Native American grapes that grow in the the southeastern U.S. French American hybrid grapes, depending on the specific variety, do have to be sprayed with a pretty good pesticide regimen. Muscadines are another option. I do want to add, if you're not familiar with muscadine grapes, you may not be familiar with the flavor. But hey, I'm a Southerner. I like those things.
Any other questions?
Rachel, there's several questions in the Q&A there. So one question was, what zone are these vines? I'm not sure what
zone. So we are here in Murfreesboro, Middle Tennessee. So if you look at your USDA zone map, I believe we're 7A. 7B is not us, so we're 7A. but we are in Murfreesboro, so it does get a little bit warmer because we're very close to Nashville, of course, major city. Again, we're right next to the interstate. There's a lot of concrete and asphalt here in Murfreesboro, so it stays pretty a little bit warmer here than, you know, even just 20 miles away. So we are a tiny bit warmer, but again, like a 7A.
And another question there, Rachel, is about irrigation. These vines aren't under any kind of irrigation, are they?
No, there is no irrigation out here. As far as management, again, we do mow in between the rows. Sometimes we spray down. You can see where it has been sprayed down with an herbicide underneath the vines. We do that when it's dormant. And then as far as like fertilization, we fertilized last year. The year before.
That's in 17 years.
Yep.
Right.
So we fertilized for the very first time 2 years ago now. Right. And that was mostly just to show students how to fertilize. Right. We got it thankfully from the co-op for free, so that was great. And then we did a demonstration with MTSU students to show them how to fertilize grapes. Yes. Yes, we only fertilize with phosphorus and potassium. We did not use any nitrogen at all. So you can look up fertilizing grapes. We don't. Generally, as a rule, we don't spray them with anything simply because that would be a lot of cost. And this is a demonstration. And we just don't. We don't have the time or the manpower or the money. So
you've got at least 3 feet of soil before you hit rock. And with that kind of depth, you really don't need to irrigate.
Yeah, so this is some of the few places in Middle Tennessee that we actually do have some soil depth, which is nice. So this originally was a farm that turned into the extension office. It's 40 acres, which is a lot for an extension office. So that's why we're thankful to utilize this space. We also, of course, have other demonstration gardens here, but this is the biggest one.
So this is a finished prune vine. I'm glad you asked that question, whomever it was. This is a great question. This is a finished pruned vine. You can see that all of these cuttings that you can see with the camera, all of them are green. There are no dead shoots remaining on this vine, with maybe a couple of exceptions because this is a training vine. But nevertheless, there are no dead shoots. They look actually relatively bare. I've had a lot of people tell me that we just killed the vineyard. You know, they drive by and see this and they say, "Oh, you killed the vineyard," and of course we didn't. There are no shoots remaining on the trunk below the fruiting zone, is what I call this wire. Each of the shoots are cut to a length to have roughly 2 to 3 buds set on the shoots, so that we know. And if you were able to count the number of shoots, there's probably 25-30 shoots on this total vine, so that we know that the fruit load is going to be optimal for this vine to ripen this summer. So they look very clean. To my eye, they look clean and prepared. I'm certain to the uninitiated, shall we say, the unfamiliar, it looks like we just cut this thing back to nothing. But this is what it should look like. Yes, muscadines are quite different from this particular type or most other grape varieties, in that these vines produce clusters of grapes. Muscadines basically produce what we call bunches of grapes. These produce clusters only, say relatively a few clusters. Muscadines produce gazillions of bunches, and they're all over the place. They're all over that vine. Pruning wise, you're roughly following the same concept, but be aware that muscadines are going to set the fruit everywhere, up and down, all over the place. Next point, when we harvest these grapes, we've literally got to clip the clusters off the vine. Mm-hmm. Muscadines, the nice thing about muscadines is the ripe fruit will fall off the vine all by themselves, which allows you to, for example, put a tarp underneath the row of the plant, mm-hmm. grab a hold of the trunk and just shake it really good, and all the ripe grapes will fall off onto your tarp and you can collect them up, as opposed to having to go and individually clip off clusters or groups. Now, you can go back and clip the muscadine clusters, but you're going to get more unripe grapes that way than if you just shake them.
Yeah.
So some differences between because they are a different species. They are Vitis rotundifolia rather than Vitis vinifera, or in this case, Vitis estivalis.
For research.
Exactly. This is, we're really trying to understand and fine tune how we recommend people grow fruit here in this region. And it's vineyards like this that let us do that research so that we can tell people accurately, this is what you need to do because we know we've tested it. Traditionally, with Vitis vinifera, for example, you would come and take a dormant cutting, stick it in the ground, water it. In the spring, it's going to grow roots and you've got a plant. What we have found through research here in this vineyard, we did a research project with a couple of students, which was wonderful. We actually took cuttings twice a month, every month for a year, took them back, planted them, and then measured the efficiency of the rooting efficiency. We found that the best time to take cuttings for rooting of this variety is in May and June, as opposed to when they're dormant. They're growing. So totally different situation that honestly caught me totally off guard, because that's not normal.
How long from planting to first harvest?
Great question. Understand that grapes are extremely focused on reproduction. I'll say that. They will try to bloom the first year you put them in the ground. They will try to produce a crop. I recommend to anybody planting any grape whatsoever to go back and cut the blossoms off the first 2 years you have the plants. That allows the plant to get well established in the ground, to grow some good permanent wood on the vine, to be vigorous, so that the third year after you plant it, you've got a good, healthy plant producing a good crop of fruit. The production of that plant will not maximize until it's, say, 5, 6, 7 years old. So your yield is going to increase every year until it's 5, 6, 7 years old. After that, it'll basically plateau, and it'll be that production level for the rest of its life.
Thank you so much for visiting our vineyard, and hopefully we will be able to invite everyone in August, depending on the situation, to come out and harvest with us. So again, that's typically about the third weekend in August. And so hopefully you'll be hearing more from us then.
Hey, thank you very much. That was a fabulous tour. And as we kind of close up, we know that we're a little bit over time, but that was a really fun way to connect with some very real and great spring activities, things that can be done, in February in some parts of the state, even into the early part of March. As we wrap up, I want to make sure that I give our panelists, anybody have anything they want to throw in before we conclude. Greg, Melody, anything you want to toss in?
Well, I would say that I'll be starting on my pruning here in March, and anybody that wants to join me, the fleet of pruners that they had there, they're more than welcome to come join me. A couple of things that I would say too, to kind of add in on what they were talking about pruning. Again, some people, they worry about pruning grapevines and then bleeding in the springtime. Do not worry about that. You're quite okay to prune those grapevines at that time. Some of your very vigorous growing plant can be pruned back harder in terms of doing what we would call cane rejuvenation each year, whereas some of the grape varieties may be a little bit more sensitive and be spur pruned, what you're looking at today. There's a lot of great information at our UT sites on pruning, and we encourage you to take those out and check those out, and not be afraid to get out into your vineyard and do some pruning.
All right. Thanks so much. And we'll send some information to kind of get you all having some print resources and address some of these great questions that we came up with. We are so thankful to our Rutherford County crew for being out there and giving us a great on-the-ground tour, as well as our Florida friends. So we have some great dates coming up throughout the year. We'll do a lot of these same type of things, and we hope that you will all join us. Thanks for our panel for keeping us all together. And best wishes as you all begin intern training and all those fun things for this year. We'll keep in touch. You'll hear from me as far as an email with the recordings and all those sort of things. So thanks so much for your time and have a great beginning to the 2021 year, everybody.